First of all, thank you this extraordinary introduction, and I am very much delighted to come here in this fantastic event, and I want to thank iDAC and especially K-Lite to really sponsor this talk and this event. You must be thinking that this kind of a mouthful of sort of like a title. So what on earth this title is all about? I mean, you must be thinking it had been concocted in an advanced stage of inebriation. But actually, it's a story. And this is a story of going back in time. I think in landscape architecture, sometime, we finish projects, you take photos, and then we kind of move away. But I think what iDAC 2022 gave the opportunity for us actually is to go back and test our design. So I thank you to Madhup and all the esteemed curators who contacted me and saying, hey, in the middle of this coronavirus, you must go and visit your project and take some video and then think how the project is. So first, actually, we was kind of very, surprised that, and also gave us a challenge to really think that, okay, I mean, we have designed something maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. And how is the design now? What happened? Is our design strong enough, robust enough to stand the test of time, or things have changed? Because with that, the sense of excitement, like meeting some old flame, after maybe 10 years, and with sense of trepidation, we asked one of the team from one of the offices to go and visit one of the sites in one of the most favorite countries in the world. And the name of the site is Vietnam. So this will be a story. Was quite a magnificent place next to rice fields, and rice is one of the most important cultural element of Vietnam, and you'll see how that story is linked together with the idea of rice. It's called Lucasta. Going back 10 years, and this is last month. As the virus raged, the photographer went to site and wanted to test the robustness of our design. So we are zooming back 10 years. So exactly 10 years ago, when the client asked us to visit the site, it was completely empty. And then actually when we went there, we found out actually there's something happened. More further back in time, there was existing projects, and we are really asked to shape this area into something very more dramatic, to have a real identity, to have a real context. As you can see, there's nothing there. So the idea was to keep a branding, to carry out a design process and give a strong concept. And that's why it is the connect with the rice. So we created on the macro level, which is called a nature, and the micro level, which is called icon. So these are kind of layered to create the design and then create the master plan. So what we did, we focused on 3 key areas. So this is now, after kind of like 10 years, and you can see still the shape is being seen in the in the video, and then going back to the concept which you had before, this layering of this rice, this kind of creating an identity for this project. And also we do some renders to see how the design works, and through different sections to understand the spatial quality. And then here we are, 20 years further. I mean, then what you can see is through the time, maybe the developers or the managers of the site, they added their own touch, but the main structure of the design remains the same. The idea of the art wall, which remains the same, and at night it looks pretty spectacular. So what we also did is, you saw the existing site, there was no hierarchy, no streetscape. And again, you can see after 10 years, it's still maintained. We have this clarity, we have the maintenance, and still is a very safe environment. And sometimes it's also quite nice to go back in the memory lane to find out how actually it has been really built, because this is also part of the entire story. And then from the entry area, we go back to the next important area, which is the club area. So again, 10 years ago, we did the drawing, and based on the structure of the rice fields, the idea of this layering form, and then creating this aesthetic in the design, and then again, doing renders to show the spatial quality, how we can enhance the waterfront, again through sections. And then again, going back further, which is now. So you can see the real lines, the real structure of the design remain the same. It's quite heartening to see those concepts are being interlaid, and still they remain as a part of the design even after 10 years. So I think it's very important to create that strong kind of idea, this strong kind of identity that can, stand, this test in time. So that's the connection with the lake and the pool. And they have, and then the client put those pots. These are actually not our design. So sometimes you can see that you have created a platform, and then the people will embellish it, but the structure remains faithful to original design. You can see the trees has grown and creates more shade, because in Ho Chi Minh City, where the site is, it's very hot, like in India. So even next to the pool, we have this shade structure. And like India, also a lot of people in Vietnam wants to stay under shade. And again, during construction, I think it's very important we sometimes forget how we actually came to this stage. So that was going back to the memory lane. So you can see the original color was black, and then the client changed it. So come to the third area, which is like a park within this project. Again, you can see the connection with the rice, the idea of creating benches, creating screens, and then creating sections again for the client to understand the spatial quality, and the renders, of course, as a part of the design. And then there we are, 20 years fast forward, last month. So you can see pretty much we maintain the overall structure of the park. Of course, there have been changes. The trees has been changed, some of them grown, but the overall aesthetic, the overall structure, the pathways, everything remains the same. It's much more open than what we had designed before, because the previous owners wanted to have something much more enclosed. But what happens, the owner changes, of course the priority also changes. But I think rather than completely change the design, I think the edges become much more open, because we wanted to make it close to sort of make sure that it is well kind of protected from the street. And again, going back to the what you can see during the construction process. It's part of this kind of a small memories when we went there during hot days and inspect. And this is kind of interesting. This is before what we inherited and what we made of it. This is exactly the house you saw before. It's complete transformation. And that's pretty much rotten waterfront. And that's what you have. We have a projected barbecue area and the nicer edge. And that's the park that actually went to the most dramatic transformation. Yeah, I think you can see that the way we have structured the design. So it was done exactly 10 years ago and built. And then I think through the robustness of the approach with the materiality, with something very simple, which can be maintained. I think you compile this so you can see this, the time travel. We traveled almost 10 years. Shadows on the ground. The shadows on the parasols. So all this said, the design project became a time proof. So what we've done 10 years ago had not been changed and still remains relevant. And for sculpture, like India, Vietnam also has lotus as national flower. So the idea is create those water sculptures even for the children to really enjoy. It's a real hit with children and still is. Some of the details. You can see the scale. When we talk about this idea of the rise that becomes part of the screen. So the concept, the idea of land culture has morphed into something permanent. And with that, I think remember, the name of the topic was One Project, One Decade. And actually it's not the project which is one decade, actually one landscape just also recently completed 1 decade. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Viraj. It was a wonderful story indeed and a beautiful journey through the decade. It's so interesting to see how your design withstood the test of time, at the same time evolved because of the human intervention, which is so natural. Curious to know how you maintain the robustness into maybe your specifications and the details, or maybe some maintenance manual guidelines which you must have given. Quick round of questions and answers if somebody has any. We have got time for, I think, 2-3 questions to take over. Yeah. So, Jasleen.
Hi, Viraj.
Hi.
I'm seeing this presentation for the second time, and it's still as held my attention. My one question
Thank you.
was regarding the format of this presentation. Is there something that you would rethink after 10 years? People change, designs change, thought process. Did you look at this design at any time and wonder that maybe I would have done it differently?
Not really. I think that's the reason. I mean, we had of course when you and Madhu mentioned to me that you had to go back up 10 years. Of course, I was a little bit nervous. Maybe sometime designer do something trendy, fashionable. Blue is the color, so put blue there, and then after 2 years, black is the color. So I think we thought that because we are the concept connected to the culture of Vietnam very much, and there was a lot of rice fields next to our site. And rice actually is a part of the Vietnamese culture because there's a lot of, poetries, plays, dramas. So I've attended many cultural programs and many events where the rice has been one of the theme that actually been exhibited. So when you presented this idea to the client, they absolutely loved it because we morphed something which is very simple, and again had a cultural kind of a layering to it. People could connect to this. So, and that's why I think myself and our team really feel vindicated that that our design actually stood test of time. As you can see from this presentation, of course the client changed some of the planting here and there, maybe changed some of the edges, but they never touched the elements that really kind of represented the main idea of this project. So I think going back, I think it looks like we have done the right thing and actually done it very simply. I mean, not really going into too much complication, because I think maintenance is something very critical. If you can see, the only water feature we have used primarily was the water fountain, because water feature everywhere is a big problem. Because in renders it looks fantastic. First year it looks brilliant. Second year it looks a dust bowl. So we actually don't want to have water feature which can't be maintained, but being very clever. I mean, the way you do, because it's actually outdoor shower. I mean, if you're feeling very hot, you just go stand there and take a shower, and then you go back, and it still remained as it is. So I would say that it's interesting to go back with a sense of trepidation, anxiety, and excitement. But I think it stood its test of time.
You have a question?
Hello there.
Hi.
I found this quite interesting because so often we do projects and then we just keep moving to the next project.
Exactly, correct.
Next project. This seemed like it was a really wonderful opportunity to kind of look back and actually study. Like you said, during this time it gave you an opportunity, which I can't remember us ever doing such a thing. So I just wonder, what was your biggest learning from actually being able to go back and having the time to study this properly and see how it has changed and how it also hasn't changed in the last 10 years?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question, because I think, as you saw the original slide before and after, there was actually a before. So it's not the brownfield side. We all wished something, there was something, nothing was there. So the first challenge was something was there, and how we can retain some of those. It's like a palimpsest. It's like there's already a poetry. So you just, palimpsest is sort of like on historic days, you just put, as is a put of layers of information on top. So still you can see what is actually written below. So we couldn't change the pool. We said, first of all, we made the pool bigger, and the client said, sorry, we cannot touch the pool. So what do? You have to do work around the pool. So we have some beautiful constraint, as I may say it. So there was already something, existing. So based on this, I mean, how you kind of transform what is existing to something which is going back after, the 10 years. I think one of the learning curve, I think most important is, I think how kind of ease of construction and how you choose materiality that actually doesn't, ask you to maybe change, or how do you structure your maybe planting in the key areas. Sometimes what happens when you design the park, you don't understand the circulation. And you have this line going through because people want to take the shortest route. And you get this in the grass, you get this, path. But we couldn't find anything there. So what we did was we understood that the circulation actually really works. And very interesting happens was this project was original client bought from this existing partly constructed villa. So we actually embellished this, and then the original client, and then the current client sold it back to the original client when it's completely changed. So the brief we had during our current client was sort of like to create a resort style environment, sustainable, using local kind of material, trying local species, and create a cultural narrative. So we did that, and then the Lucasta, which is the current name. So the current owners who actually owned the unfinished villas before, they added their own sort of like maybe removing some trees, some shrubs, some edges within this project, make some areas more open. So I think the brief slightly changed. But what is very interesting for us is even the brief changed, I think the overall essence of the project remained. So that was a very, very kind of like a good feeling from our side, because it was a challenge. And we thought we just go and see it, whatever, and we just present. If it's ugly, and you have to say sorry, with time it has turned ugly. But actually, it's not. So we are pretty pleased that, you know, I think, and also it goes with the maintenance regime as well. If you don't do making too complicated, you keep something simple and focus on the core issues, I think your project will be, you know, time proof. So yeah.
Thank you, Viraj. I'm sure this project is going to be also having its vocabulary, which is already timeless, and it's going to be withstanding few more years, few more decades. And if you would like to move on to our next speaker,
Thank you so much.
and
Thank you.
please one big round of applause for Viraj Chatterjee.